right, some variations in happiness. All right, tried to find a background picture that might indicate jealousy or envy. So I don't know whether these smileys are conveying that. He kind of on the right looks mad more than jealous. So I don't know. I was trying for jealousy because I wanted to talk a little bit about relative deprivation. So when we are trying to figure out where we stand, we tend to compare ourselves to others and see what other people have, what other people can do, what other people, think, and how we're doing relative to others allows us to figure out whether we're happy with what we are doing or what we have. I think that's a big takeaway from the demonstration I did at the end of the last lecture where I was talking about grades, right? If I did better than most, that makes me feel better. If I did worse than most, it makes me feel a lot worse. So what we're talking about is sort of relative deprivation having a big impact. The better we're doing relative to others, the more satisfied we tend to be. So as grades become inflated, as instructors are giving more A's and more B's and fewer D's and fewer F's, good grades become less satisfying because there's not much risk. This goes back to something I talked about earlier in a previous chapter when we talked about, people who are high in the need for achievement persist with challenging tasks and are satisfied more when they've competed and done well, come out on top or feel like they've measured up well compared to their peers. This is an important thing in helping us to feel good and to make us feel happy. And so by having grade inflation, we have a problem. We're actually depriving students of the pleasure that comes from achieving a good grade when the good grade was hard to do. So I'm going to jump into positive affect. Okay, so positive affect. Affect is another word for emotion. And so positive affect would be positive emotions. So I'm relying on this study from Kunzman et al. From 2005. And so they have two dimensions. One is feelings and one is lifestyle. Under the category of feelings, there is pleasant affect, which includes things like feeling exuberant, happy, proud, amused, cheerful. And then there's positive involvement. And that's feeling interested, feeling alert, feeling inspired, attentive, and active. Just as a sidebar, these two qualities correlate with each other pretty well. They're positively correlated. A 0.37 is pretty good in psychological research. And so these two components correlate with each other such that feelings are clearly made up of these two components. And if you're high on one, you tend to be higher on the other. And if you're low on one, you tend to be lower on the other. Now with lifestyle, we have, that hedonic lifestyle where, we seek a pleasurable life, we seek out intimacy and social approval. And then we have the growth related lifestyle, which is we value personal growth. We value the well-being of our friends and family, and we value social or societal engagement. So here are some interactions of these two dimensions. So for example, a person who's motivated by a hedonic lifestyle and pleasant affect might do things like buy something nice for themselves. They might go dancing. They might go to dinner with friends. So in all of the things that they do that, all the behaviors that they engage in that might reflect their positive affect, they're all things that they also get to do. So buy something nice for themselves. Go dancing. See, they also get to enjoy that activity. Go to dinner with friends, right? So yeah, I'm out with my friends and I'm getting to socialize, right? So there's always that component where I'm doing things for myself, right? And I'm engaging it. Growth related, again, with the pleasant affect, learn a new skill, help a friend, go to a museum. So again, I'm engaging with other people. I'm doing something that would better myself, like learning a new skill. So we have these components of pleasant affect. Positive involvement, we might do things like take classes for certification. We might cook dinner for friends. Now, of course, maybe if I enjoy cooking, I have that experience that I'm enjoying and it's making that part pleasurable for me. but that I'm doing it for my friends, so that they don't have to buy dinner and they don't have to make dinner and like that. And they, I'm taking care of them. There's a little bit more selflessness in the positive involvement categories than there is in the pleasant affect category. But I wanted to throw out at this moment to relate to this idea of positive involvement, this concept from Denmark called hygge, which, and they say most non-Danish speaking people pronounce it incorrectly. So if you're a Danish speaking person, I apologize for thrashing that word. But it's a Danish word that's used to acknowledge a special feeling or moment. It can be alone or with friends, at home or out, ordinary or extraordinary, but is always cozy, charming, or special. I read an entire book on this, and they spent the entire book basically saying there's really nothing equivalent in the English language that would help you to understand. Notice all the words it took to try and tell you what hygge means. So I guess we all just need to learn Danish so we'll understand what it really means. But the idea of being positively involved and experiencing pleasure, I think, is a really good overview of what I think they're trying to get at, right? That experiencing something pleasurable and noticing it. A lot of times we experience pleasurable things and don't notice it. A beautiful sunset, and we don't even really turn our eyes and look at it. Maybe a breeze that is like the perfect temperature, right? So that you can sit in that breeze and just think, man, it's just washing over me and it's the perfect temperature. Or the beautiful smell of a flower garden that maybe we walk by and we go, those smell good, but we don't ever really stop and think, oh my gosh, let's just absorb what I'm experiencing here. In hygge, they're arguing that we should be noticing those things. Like it becomes hygge when you have taken the moment to experience it. I guess that's what I'll say is the definition. I read a whole book and I'm still struggling to explain exactly what they mean by it. The last intersection of feelings and lifestyle would be the growth-related lifestyle and positive involvement. And that would include things like volunteering, reading books, being politically active, where you're trying to develop yourself by being involved, right? So these two dimensions interact in a way that helps to reveal sort of what's motivating an individual when they're engaging in different kinds of activities, right? So we can kind of look at a person's behaviors and infer from those what they're probably getting out of it, based on this model. By the way, I wanted to point out, you've got this very difficult challenge of trying to find articles from each chapter that come from experimental or just at least research-based journals. And I told you you can kind of tell from the title of the journal what kind it is. Notice that this Kunstman study comes from Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin. A lot of times when it has the word bulletin in it, it's not going to report novel research. It's going to be more like theoretical papers where they're looking across a bunch of different studies and integrating them into a theory. And so that's exactly what Kunstman et al. Did, is that they looked at a bunch of different research and they brought it together and came up with this model that explains these two dimensions of positive affect. If you do happen to find an article like this and you go, dang it, it doesn't have a method or a results section in it, I can't use this study. You can look in its introduction section and see what it's citing and look those up off of the reference page and go, okay, well, so I looked up the Kunstman article and it was actually not a research article. So I read one of the articles off of its citation list or its reference list. And that's where I got my information. And so I would like to give you permission to go outside of what the strict rules say on the assignment. It doesn't have to be particularly one of the articles from our chapter because they're hard. It's hard to find something that is a research article. And that's part of what I want you to learn from this exercise, is that a lot of positive psychology is theoretical and not research based. All right, sticking with the Kunstman article though. So one of the things that they talk about is the difference in what we see in what people of different age groups are doing. So they looked at studies that included people ranging from 15 to 70 years old. And they found that on average, younger participants were pursuing a pleasant affect and a hedonic lifestyle, whereas older participants were more motivated by positive involvement and growth-related lifestyle. Doesn't that sound like the older participants might be going after Erikson's generativity motive again? Right? We keep seeing that coming back up, that, engaging and involving and trying to grow and develop. These are generative things to do. Whereas when we're younger, life is new. And so, pursuing pleasant affect and a hedonic lifestyle makes a lot of sense because I haven't experienced a lot of these things. This stuff is new. As a person gets older, they may be more concerned about like leaving a mark on the future generations and things like that. All right. Now, I wanted to make sure to insert gratitude into this conversation because my colleague, Phil Watkins, is a major researcher in the area of gratitude, has a book on it and stuff. So I can't not include that. So gratitude is overtly recognizing our positive outcomes, like deliberately and on purpose reflecting on our positive outcomes and being grateful for them. People who practice gratitude tend to also experience greater life satisfaction, tend to display more empathy, tend to display more forgiveness for others, tend to have better health, tend to sleep better, and tend to have higher self-esteem. Now, here's the error everybody makes on every talk show and women's magazine I've ever read about gratitude is then they assume that if you do a gratitude journal, you will then develop better self-esteem and that your sleep will improve and stuff like that. It's possible that that is true and that might happen, but it's just as possible that sleeping better makes it more likely that you can see the positive in the things that are happening in your outcomes, right? It's like, if there is a causal relationship, it could flow either direction in these correlations. But one of the things that I like about Dr. Watkins is that he actually has conducted experiments on gratitude. So when I talk about his research, we won't be talking about just correlations. Gratitude has also been shown to help people to reduce their PTSD symptoms and also to reduce negative affect. So people with depression tend to benefit, or people with at least low-grade depression have been shown to benefit from gratitude activities. So I thought I'd share, Dr. Watkins reported this in the study that was published in 2015. He also reported it in a book that you might be interested in called Gratitude and the Good Life, Toward a Psychology of Appreciation. It came out in 2014. And in his research, he actually experimentally tested the claim the gratitude journals will benefit negative affect by randomly assigning half of the participants to engage in gratitude journaling and half of the participants were not told to do that. I think they were told to write some other kind of story, I think is what he had them doing, so that everybody wrote a little bit each day, but only the gratitude journalers were doing gratitude exercises. And what he found immediately after the 6-week period of journaling is that people's depression scores went down in the journaling group, and it didn't go down in the control group. But what he found really surprising is that he did a 6-week follow-up and did not tell anyone to continue journaling at all. And the people who had journaled for the duration of the experiment were still enjoying reduced depression symptoms 6 weeks later. And he was not sure at the time I was talking to him about it. He was not sure about whether maybe spontaneously the journalers continued their journaling, or if journaling for 6 weeks really does affect your mood for another 6 weeks. He wasn't sure at that time. He's probably conducted the research that clarified it, but I haven't read it yet, so I'm not positive. So I thought I would throw that in and share that issue with you, that gratitude seems to be a really important factor in a lot of positive outcomes in a lot of different ways. So the pursuit of happiness. It's really important to separate the pursuit of happiness, which is in our Declaration of Independence, right? Um, it's important to separate the concept of well-being from the concept of being well off, right? It's not, the pursuit of happiness is not about some amount of money as long as you're above the poverty level. It's probably about well-being, which is feeling good and a lot of other positive things, right? We want to make sure that when we're comparing ourselves to others, that we do it with caution. Whenever we're feeling maybe a little bit like we're not measuring up to the peers that we normally compare to, it is a great idea to shift our focus and maybe find somebody that would allow us to make a downward comparison. What that means is when we're maybe feeling a little bit shaky about how we're measuring up compared to our normal peers, we might look over to somebody else and say, well, at least that's not happening to me, right? Maybe we just had a breakup, let's say, and it seems like all of our regular friend group is still dating who they were dating, and we feel left out now because, we're the odd man out. But if we look over at this other group, we might say, well, here's a group of people who, they haven't even had a romantic partnership or, something like that. So at least I've had a romantic partner. And that makes us feel better as we've had a loss or a hit to our ego, to look at somebody else and say, well, at least I'm not in that condition. I need to keep my head on straight and realize that I'm actually pretty lucky, or that things have been going pretty well for me. Keep a gratitude journal, but don't be a slave to it. One thing that, again, with these talk shows and women's magazines is that they'll oftentimes make it seem like every single night you have to do a gratitude journal, or you have failed. And now you have one more thing to put on your plate of what a loser you are. You couldn't even bother to do a gratitude journal. You don't have to do it all the time. You don't have to tell yourself to sit down and write stuff. You can actually just have a moment of mindful thinking about something that happened during the day that you're really happy about, or that you're glad for, or that you noticed and got a little bit of hygge from, right? It doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be a person that you're thinking gratitude thoughts about. It can be something very small, and you can be grateful that you noticed this small, pleasurable hygge moment in your life. And that's enough to be gracious about. You can pursue a hobby and try and find flow. Especially if your job or your work or your school is not producing flow for you, find a hobby that does. Find a hobby that you can immerse yourself in and find that flow moment. Stick to tough tasks and find some pleasure in the challenge. Tell yourself that, you know what, sometimes this is a struggle, but it's going to be worth it in the end. And the fact that I'm sticking with it is a good sign about me and my mental health and all these things. Find pleasure in that. Maintain your family connections and be a friend to your friends. Friendships don't maintain themselves. You have to reach out. And so, maintaining those family connections. I have to confess, had a disagreement with my married and, child-filled daughter that she doesn't share enough of like the little minutia of what's going on with her kids. I mean, they live 5 miles from me, so it's not like I couldn't see them more often than I do, but it's like that day-to-day stuff when you're raising children who are less than 7 years old. There's just like cute things that happen. Send me a little picture, give me a little anecdote, just a little tiny thing. Grandma wants to see it, right? Those things are really important for making us feel like we know each other, right? That makes us feel connected. And so do that with your friends, do it with your family. And a lot of times people don't share with their parents enough information because they're like, I don't know, they won't care, or, it's cumbersome. A little snapshot of something quirky texted to your parent is probably going to land really well. So just little things that you can do. Volunteer, right? One of the most valuable things that you have right now is your time. And volunteering some of it will boost your positivity enormously because you will feel good in the long run. So volunteer. I can't emphasize that one enough. So here's this week's positivity exercise. I got a couple of things that could achieve the same basic goal for you. One is write down 3 things that you're grateful for each night before bed. One of the things that Watkins has people do in that journaling is this basic prompt. And a lot of times people write the same 3 things down. That's not the point. Like if you can't think of 3 new things, don't write the same 3 things that you wrote last night. Skip a night. Say, Well, I didn't see anything really notable, so I'm not going to write anything down tonight. But I'm grateful that I'm, mentally say to yourself, well, I'm grateful that I'm here, and that the same kinds of things are going on in my life. But I'm going to be looking around a little bit more for some Hugo moments or something that to be grateful for tomorrow. Like give yourself a little homework. I'm going to be looking around a little bit more because I think I might have been too busy, too focused on other things, and so I'm going to actually tell myself to look for a moment to be grateful for. So that I think when you have a block and you can't think of what to write down on a gratefulness journal, is a sign that, you know what, maybe tomorrow I need to like take a breath and look out the window and say, wow, the sky sure is blue. Or, something that makes me feel a moment of like connected to nature, connected to other people, connected to life. The other option I have for you, if you feel like doing this and maybe you have some time, is to create it. And maybe you would want to do something like this to include in your final project, but create a vision board with a collage of pictures that depict what you want for the future, right? Maybe place it near your bed and look at it each day. Maybe add to it. Like maybe you start with one picture today and then you see something else on the internet, or maybe you get magazines or something, and it's like, oh, this is actually a good one too. And then you start adding to it and you put more and more stuff on it. You start building it organically. Like rather than sitting down and trying to find a bunch of pictures that illustrate things, maybe each day you're sort of adding, or once a week you're adding to that collage, so that by the end of the quarter, you've got, 12 or 20 pictures that you've added over the course of the time. And it's built into sort of a goal board for you, a vision board of where you want to be. A lot of people argue that having a clear vision of where you're trying to go makes it much more likely that you'll get there. So if you want to engage in a vision board, that's my idea for that. All right. Well, thank you for sticking it out on a longer finishing video here and our discussion of happiness. And I will see you in the next video.